All Dirt Roads Taste of Salt, a lyrical decade spanning exploration of a Black woman's melancholia within the bounds of rural Mississippi. Released in 2023, directed by Raven Jackson and written by Raven Jackson in her debut, was the choice of Lynn Webb here in the second week of our celebration of Women's History Month. Lynn, I know you have a lot to say about All Dirt Roads Taste of Salt.
The first thing I want to say about this film is we've talked before about about some movies you want to experience on the big screen. This was meant for the big screen, right?
Yes.
And a lot of times when people talk about that, missionaries, they're talking about like these big sci-fi spectacles or big special effects, you know, or like the Mission Impossible movies, or, you know, every third Marvel movie or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
All Dirt Roads Taste of Salt, which, as Vince, as you said, it's basically this film that is about, you know, the loves, the heartbreaks of this one woman growing up in Mississippi. That jump cuts, but from her at a younger age to a teenager and to as an adult as we walk through her life in Mississippi. Circa, I guess it's going into like, I guess maybe it's the 1900s, but it's like the late 1900s, probably like 70s to 80s.
The 80s, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm figuring, because there's no year that's
right
there. Which sounds like a very personal, very sweet, you know, just a drama story, right? But this is a film that 100% should be experienced on the largest screen possible, if not a movie screen, because it's no longer in theater. Because what Raven Jackson has done, more so than the writing, but with her direction and with the cinematography of Jomo Frey on this film, they have made what I have said all along since the first time I saw this movie, a poem on film. This is one of the most beautiful films that I have ever seen. And by that, I mean the scenes, because this is filmed on location. The scenes are so gorgeous. The colors so specific to the mood that they want to present. The pictures that they want to paint. This is the epitome of a motion picture, because this is a painting. This is a still painting that just happens to be moving, and moving very subtly, very intentionally. There is maybe 200 words in this entire movie. And there are scenes where people are standing with their backs to the camera so that you can just take in everything that's happening. So the mood of the moment can register with you and on you and imprint in your heart. There are intense, long, loving close-ups of hands touching one another, touching other hands, touching the dirt, touching the water, and because these scenes are allowed to just live and just be with not much, music, so you're just hearing the world. The soundscape is basically the world in which the scene is set. You can almost feel the texture of the clothes underneath the fingertips because it's how long. When there's an incredible scene that goes from a hugging of remembrance to a hugging of regret to a hugging of loss, that all in just one long hug that is seen by the hands reaching behind someone, touching their shoulders. Um, it is just an absolute visit. And because of that, it is an absolute visit into this woman. Mac is her name, her life, her experiences. As she grows up, we meet her at a young age fishing with her father, played by Chris Chalk, a phenomenal actor we've talked about here many times. He is in this film. The movie has 200 words. He's probably got 10 of them. like considering like he's probably the biggest name in here outside of Sheila Adam, who plays the mother, and who many people probably most commonly remember her from The Woman King. It starts with Mac at a young age, and we see her, like I said, as a teenager, and as well as for a snippet as an older woman. But for the most part, we see her as a child, played by Kaylee Nicole Johnson, who has eyes that just welcome you into this moment. A very young actress, but a powerful actress on screen, as she deals with, learning how to fish. She has seemingly a loving relationship with her mother and with her sister, Josie, played by Jaya Henry. They have a loving relationship with one another. There's a great scene in the beginning where Mac is, and you often see her with her hands touching the earth, touching the dirt. And she's touching the dirt underneath the river where she was just fishing with her father. And, and the camera stays on her, just playing with the dirt, playing with the texture of the earth in her hands. And then she kind of like stirs up the dirt underneath the water. You see the dirt stirring. And as that happens, you hear storm clouds start to break overhead. It never cuts to the storm clouds, but you can feel the storm clouds and seeing the dirt swirling in the water. Such a beautiful, magnificent moment, especially because that water will play a part in the rest of this film as you learn about Mac's ambivalence to water, let's put it that way, because of the memories that it does evoke for her. This movie walks you through her growing up, learning how to love, a sweet moment where she learns about kissing and how to kiss that is so real, so tender, so, what I learned, authentic. I didn't know about it. You learn about regret, the life not lived. And if I'm being ambivalent about the plot, one is because there's not much plot to the film. It really is about her life. Usually films like this, like there's some like inciting incident that happens. There kind of is an inciting incident, so I don't want to give it away, but it's not much. And the movie is very sparing in how it reveals it to you. It really is just about you being in the back pocket of Mac as she is living her life. And what does that mean? What does that mean to be a Black woman growing up in Mississippi at this time? And there's no like real hard lessons about, conversation about, race and being Black in America, anything like that. No, this is just truly about a life lived. It is really 100% like that. And in so doing, it is an amazing piece of filmmaking. Raven Jackson has done a couple of shorts, but this is her first feature-length film. Smartly, it's about an hour and 40 minutes. So it's not long at all. There's you can see that she has a deft hand of of direction and storytelling. There's a scene that's set in a church that, as it pulls back, you're not sure exactly where you are in this church and why you're supposed to be there for in this church at this moment, because all you're hearing is a choir sing. But as it pulls back, you understand and reveals that you're there for the wedding of her sister. And then the camera pans over to an empty chair and then looks out a window. And from there, while the church scene seemingly is still going on in the background, time moves ahead slightly to the end of the wedding while it's still ongoing. That is like brilliant, exceptional storytelling in one moment, and then as the camera continues to pan, it lands on some roses on like I believe like on the top of a piano or something, and just locks there for a moment. And you're there for all of it. I'm there for all of it. And as beautiful a scene as this is, my one regret about this movie is that I did not see this on the big screen, because I know that on the big screen, this would be such an amazing experience. It is a quiet, intentional, thoughtful film that I fear that when you're watching it at home, it's easy to get lost because there's not a lot of dialogue to kind of like make you lift your head up. For people to get lost in scrolling or doing something like that, I think in a theater experience where you're locked and you have no choice but to engage with the movie and the story that's being told, I think that is an absolutely different experience. And I applaud Raven Jackson for in these streaming times to make such a powerful, dramatic, heartfelt, and funny film that still is necessary for the movie screen. I absolutely cannot say enough about All Dirt Roads Taste of Salt, and it immediately becomes, along with Pariah, one of the films that I will like beg people to sit. I will sit down and watch it with you. I've seen it 10 times. I don't care. I will watch this with you to make sure that you see this film and really take it in.
Yeah, I agree with every single thing that you just said. I think when we use a word like sensual, it's always connected to sexuality.
Yes.
And while certainly there are moments that are actually sexy in this film, I think when we sensual kind of appealing to the senses, so much of this film does. The sound design, as you said, it's filmed in this rural environment, Mississippi, Tennessee, and the sounds of the wind and the rain, the water in the creeks, the crickets, like all of it, you can just, because there isn't a lot of dialogue, the irony is you can pay attention to the sounds. Like it's not a lot of music. It is just sounds.
And how much that tells the story.
And how much those sounds tell the stories. Obviously, you can't touch a screen, but as you said, there's this textual, tangible feel that when the film opens, short for Mackenzie, is learning how to clean a fish.
Yeah.
And there's this amazing shot of this fish with the fish scales, the detail of the fish scales. As you mentioned, the clothing that you see, the role that hair plays.
Oh, yeah.
Where Mackenzie always has these two braids, regardless of the point in her life where they show her that you can feel it. And then, visually, as you said, it's an absolute feast for the eyes. It made me think before I thought it was so appropriate that when you read about this film, Barry Jenkins produced it.
Yeah.
When it was one of the producers, because I think what I love the most about this film is Raven Jackson, much like we've talked about with Barry Jenkins, going all the way back to Medicine for Melancholy, and put a pin in that because we'll circle back to that in these films in a moment. Raven Jackson has such a love for the black body, like the black body. As you mentioned, so much of this film focuses on hands.
Mm-hmm.
And these beautiful, just deep, dark, brown, rich, ebony hands. Actor to actor. You see the hands, you see the nail beds of the hands. Mm-hmm. There are moments when the darkness of the hands, you see the other side that is lighter. And you know, the people's hips, faces. You know, I just mentioned hair. So much is done with hair in this film. So you know, just to pull names, I was thinking about Barry Jenkins, what Barry Jenkins does in something like Moonlight. Of course, the great Julie Dash with Daughters of the Dust, where all of this just on that level is just a feast. You talked about Raven Jackson's direction. I cannot agree with you more. I thought the pacing was so confident and so attuned to what she was trying to get across, because I do think it's very easy to make a film like this and it kind of plods.
Yeah.
But I think the way it's paced, the way images are in the shot, like there's always something for you as the viewer to take in. Much like you, Jomo Frey, with Jomo Frey's cinematography is amazing. We've seen Jomo Frey before. I actually said Medicine for Melancholy and I was mistaken. We've talked about Jomo Frey before. He was a cinematographer for Seela in the Spades.
Oh, okay.
A small film that we talked about a few years ago. And speaking of just the love that this film has for black bodies, the way these actors are lit is remarkable. There's a scene where Mackenzie and her friend, and at some point her love interest Wood, they're teenagers. They're in the dark. Something has happened, and and Mackenzie is talking. You don't know it's Wood. You just see her talking, and it's that country dark. So it's just darkness, and you see her talking, and you hear Wood's voice, but then Wood moves, and you realize that what you've been seeing, he's leaned over.
Yeah.
And it's the top of his hair.
His afro. Yeah.
And then when he leans back, you see his face, but you realize that Jomo Frey's cinematography has this unending blackness. And I gasped a little bit because, it was like, again, this combination of a director of cinematography who has this mastery of light and this direction that understands the black body.
Yes.
So that you
combining
get
them.
This shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a shot where Mackenzie is with her father and there's a storm on the horizon, but it's still sunny. And the two of them are in the side of the frame.
Yeah, this is after the wedding.
After the wedding, and you see the sun, and it's just shot after shot.
Yeah.
After shot. You know, there's a moment when the teenagers are in one of these trees that you see in the country, like these huge 100-year-old trees. And it's just a still of them. And it is, and while you're right, there is no real plot. Like it's Mackenzie's life. You basically see her as a child, as a teenager and as an adult.
Yeah, and real quick, shout out to Charlene McClure, who plays her from the teenager to like kind of like young adult.
Yeah.
So give her props.
Yeah, absolutely. But in some ways, I feel like what I took from the film was that there is poetry and beauty in the most ordinary of lives.
Yes.
Like, this is a very ordinary life.
Mm-hmm.
She has heartbreak. She has triumph. She has sadness. She has happiness.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a woman's life. And presenting a woman's life as something that is poetic, something that, dare I say, is almost holy, the way that Raven Jackson kind of presents her. I think that says so much about Raven Jackson's love for these people. You mentioned the church scene. And again, look, scene to scene to scene. You can talk about this in every single scene in this film, but there's a moment in the church scene where it's just it's basically a montage of the people in the church.
Oh yeah.
But it's just shot after shot after shot of older Black women in this little country church. And again, the love radiates from the screen that this film has for these people.
Yeah.
And you're right. I can't, it's an extraordinary film. I'm so glad I watched it. I will say this, it would not surprise me if we had an opportunity to see this on the big screen at some point, because this is very much a film that will endure.
I hope, yes.
And people will talk about it, and it will be on screens.
I think it is one of those films that people will discover.
Absolutely.
Most definitely. It's interesting because I wanted to talk about... I
mean, if not for nothing, Jomo Frey is the cinematographer on Nickel Boys.
Right.
Which everyone has talked about how beautiful Nickel Boys is.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about that scene with all the teenagers on like the 1,000-year-old tree.
Yeah.
Because that was the scene that I watched where I was like, oh my God, this is a motion picture. Because it's a scene. So there is some subtle movement, but not much. So it almost looks like a photo. And it was in that moment watching that, I was like, you know what? She's got a lot of Gordon Parks in her. Which really just like popped right in that moment, there is watching this movie, I'm pretty sure I haven't said it here, but I recently had a loss in my family and just been dealing with that for a little bit. And there is a loss that happens in this movie. And the way that it deals with it, because there's a loss, the loss that is revealed outside of the incident.
Right.
And there was something about the way that they did that she does that I felt so real to me, because in dealing with a loss, you kind of want to get to that incident.
Right.
You know, because it is only once you're there and then in the aftermath of the ceremony and the pomp and circumstance of that you really start to reconcile with your feelings.
Right.
And I liked leading with like really like the end of the funeral.
Right.
And then it backtracks from there.
Right.
And I thought that was extremely thoughtful and original.
Yeah.
Way, because usually if there's a funeral, you're cutting to the rain, cutting to the umbrellas.
Right.
No umbrellas, no rain. It's real.
Right. I mean, speaking of that loss, this is actually the moment, and I know we've talked about this sort of physicality and even more so than the performances, but I thought Chris Chalk, as he sort of portrays a man dealing with grief, like I loved his performance, in each of the part. You know, it's speaking of Moonlight's on my mind. You know, we talk about Nicole Harrison Moonlight in each of the three parts. She's the only actress in each of the three parts of Moonlight. Chris Chalk plays a similar role in this film, where he's the only actor that's in all three parts of Mackenzie's life.
Oh, that's true. That's right. You're right.
And he plays it differently in each part. And to your point, so much of his performance is informed by this incident.
Yeah.
And it's subtle, it's masterful, it's understated. And again, there's this almost holistic effect where everything, performance, sound design, cinematography, direction, script, like it all blends together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the amazing piece of filmmaking. If you haven't seen it, I'm cutting to the end.
No, right.
I recommend that you see All Dirt Road's Taste of Salt. Again, on the largest screen possible. Put the phone aside, you know, it's only an hour and 40 minutes. So give yourself that time to really just sit and take in this film. It is a masterful piece of storytelling, masterful piece of direction. It is a beautiful film, beautiful acting by everyone in this movie. And I think the word you used, sensual, is very apt. A sensual experience.
Look, I'm going to keep name checking him because we've been doing this long enough. You can actually chart our conversations about. I don't know if I've felt like this with the first time director. I mean, certainly Jordan Peele. I was very excited, but you know, we kind of knew who Jordan Peele was from Key and Peele, and you know, he was like a dude.
Yeah.
But like, I remember watching Medicine for Melancholy the first time and saying, I don't know who Barry Jenkins is, but I am 100% keeping up with him with everything he does.
Right.
And that's how I felt watching this film.
Yeah.
Like, this is a director, this is a young director. This is somebody that, yeah.
Yeah.
I not only do I recommend this, I recommend Raven Jackson.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. We are whatever's next, there.
Yeah.
Done.